So I'm going to present Terry's 15 tips for effective virtual teaming. I apologize that the last video somehow lost the audio channel. I must have destroyed it when editing on YouTube. So first, a little bit about my background. I've been doing virtual teams for a very long time. In my second company, around 2001 to 2004, we were an entirely virtualized company. We had 5 engineers in 5 cities, salespeople in 3 other cities. We held most of our meetings entirely virtual because we weren't all together, but that was the best way for our team to get the talent we needed at the speed and time we needed and the cost we needed to make the company successful. We still had physical meetings, but we spent lots of our time working virtually. Most of our time was spent working virtually. I've also done multi-million-dollar projects with people I've actually never met. But we did them entirely virtual between a group in Silicon Valley, us. I've managed teams for companies in India, so very virtual, very far, making communications more of a challenge. So I've learned a lot of things for virtual teams. Obviously, we've done teams in the BI for a long time. I've even taught this class entirely virtual before COVID, so this is not a quick reaction. This is based on more than a decade of experience of dealing with virtualized teams. So the first is to get the team together, ideally physically, not necessarily going to happen in the next couple of weeks with COVID, early on. But at a minimum, you want to do video chat. And you want to have part of that be talking about you, not just the product or the assignment. And the reason for this is twofold. First, you want to build bonds with people, and bonds occur when you have more of a shared understanding of each other. That can help you from an empathetic point of view, from like design thinking. Trying to understand what's driving them, where they're going. But you might also find the second value there is that you will gain insights into the skills the person has that you might not have been thinking about. We often approach things with sort of blinders on, and you have a very narrow view of what's going to happen. As you get to know each other, you might find that there's other parts of that person's personality and background that might be leveraged in the project that you weren't really thinking about. So that can also be a nice thing. So it's both social, but also can actually help drive the product to assignment earlier. Early on, and you will be doing this, is a commitment to communications charter. So the idea of this communications charter is twofold. So the first is, really it's just about how you're going to communicate. And I'll talk more about tools in just a couple seconds. But importantly, the communication charter is also about setting expectations. Whatever the tool is, how often will it be used? If you're going to use text messages, right, that's fine. You have to exchange email or phone number, so you can do all that. If you can do email addresses, whatever. That's all in the charter so that people who forget have a place to go and find everything. But it's also going to say that you will respond, everyone on the team will respond to a text or other communication message, email, Slack message, whatever, right, within 24 hours. That is, I'm expected to check that communication channel at least once a day to figure out where things are. You can't expect them to respond immediately. They might be at work, they might be in class, they can't always have everything going. So you have to have some reasonable mechanism for dealing with that. You also can have, as part of your communication charter, commonly you'll have a process for when we're getting together physically or electronically, if you're doing virtual teams, so when we're going to get together on the call, and what happens when somebody can't make it? How does that communicated? What are the repercussions? So that's part of what you're talking about in a communications charter, and you want everyone to agree on that up front. Sometimes things happen and you have to deal with with compassion that things will happen, but you want to have a charter that helps specify what those processes are so that you know what's going on. You want to leverage the best communication technologies you can. Group video chats, sharing screens with MS Teams, that'll be part of what you're going to be required to do in this class. There's lots of other tools, Skype, Hangouts, Slack, WebEx, Zoom, Easy Talks, tons of tools. In fact, even though I say here the best, you have to use at least good. I'm not sure that MS Teams is the best, but it's what campus is providing, and we will be using that. It's important, in my view, that you do a lot of this with video. And in this class, what I have you do video assignments, I'm going to require that you not only have video, but you have a camera so that I can sort of see your facial expressions, because to me, that's part of understanding how the group communication is going. While this class is about entrepreneurship includes the ability to work on teams with people, and I want to both see how well you're doing and get a feel for that. You among your team will also find that if you actually become better attuned to what's going on the screen and what the faces of your team members are doing, you'll get a lot more out of your team interactions. Some of you would prefer to have the camera off on the side, you're looking at the screen, you're not even paying attention, right? That's not effective communication. It is effectively ignoring your teammates. Turning your camera off makes it less obvious if you're ignoring them, but it also is a kind of ignoring them because you can't see them and they can't see you. So at least for the recorded videos in this class, I'm going to expect you to use your cameras and be working as an effective virtual team. Once you have a really, really strong relationship with people, you can get by without having that. But in the beginning, it's very important to help build those connections so you can better understand when people are what are doing. You want to have agreed upon tools, including some level of history and access. So as part of your communications charter, by history, I mean something where you can go back and see what was said 3 weeks ago. And you can do that with some tools. You can even do that with text messages, a little tougher with other tools like Snapchat where they just disappear, right? So you want to think about that. You also have to think about where and when people will have access. So if you have a tool that requires that they have their phone, right, then they can get to it, wherever, whenever. If you require that they're online to use this tool, then you have to think about when that will happen and how that will work. In this class, I'm not going to actually audit your communications channels except for the videos I ask you to turn in. But it has been useful when there's been discrepancies about who said what when I asked them to see their chat and their history channel. So at one point in time, if there's a disagreement, I could ask to see your history and understand what's going on. But that's an exception, not an expectation in general. Very important that you clarify tasks and processes, not just goals and roles. So when you're talking about what's going on, it's important to talk about what are the tasks to be accomplished and what are the processes by which they will be done? How will they be decided? How will they be communicated? Not just the goals. We'll have this report done by Monday. Well, who's doing what part of the report? How's it going to be decided? When is it going to be integrated, right? 5 people writing a report does not make a very good report unless they've actually had some general agreement on the scope, the style, the writing, a bunch of other things. So it's not just about goals and roles. Think about your tasks and processes. It's very effective for a team to build a rhythm. For like my company team, that was a little bit easier. We had daily stand-ups of 15 minutes. So pretty much every day we talked, the rhythm is more consistent. My lab does daily meetings. But for this class, because you're not working 40 hours a week, it's a little harder to have as much rhythm, but you still want a rhythm. So if assignments generally tend to be due on Tuesdays and Fridays, your team might choose to meet on Sundays and Wednesdays or something. So you have some, standard meeting times and a rhythm you get into so you keep things going. Trying to dynamically schedule meetings is useful for short-term things, but in the long run, it gets people confused because they don't know what to plan on. You want to create a virtual gathering process. This comes back to the video. And you want to make sure you do some of that to have some social communication. So you could have, and in fact, it's an effective thing to do when you're having virtual meetings. So you have a meeting start, but you can actually say that the first 4 minutes of that meeting are social time, right? So that you come in and you have social. Or, more commonly, to say that the last 5 minutes we're going to have some social time. I actually like the social time at the beginning because it actually can be convenient if people are a little bit late. But the bad thing is if people figure out that, well, I can be 5 minutes late because you're just doing social, then your meetings just slip and get worse. And so, but it gives you some balance. But find some way to have some regular social communication. For student teams, this has actually not been near as much of an issue as I've seen them for the professional teams, because lots of you are very social oriented, and so there'll be some of that communication. If you have a team member who tends to be a little bit more introverted and not as communicative in terms of social stuff, make an effort to try and engage them. The more they connect socially, the more you can understand them on their team, the better your empathetic reactions will be, but also the more they will connect in with your team. So don't make them super uncomfortable by being overly social, but and make sure that you're not letting them avoid the social interactions because that's where they're most comfortable. Okay. The second relates back to that goals and roles, which is to clarify and track commitments. You want to, when someone's going to get something done, you want to clarify what it is they're going to get done, and you want to track the commitments. So in this class, we don't have an official team lead. Normally, this is part of the job of a leader, but my view is that everyone should be clarifying and tracking commitments. If you're not sure what somebody said they're going to do, ask a follow-up question, make sure what's going on. Tracking commitments, in my view, the most effective virtual teams, the commitments are not assigned to someone. They are commitments from an individual. So Susie might say, I will have this done on Tuesday. That's Susie's commitment. One of the things that's important when you're dealing with commitments is to sort of also be honest about when things are not going right. If Susie said she's going to have it due on Tuesday and on Sunday she recognizes, things have just come up, I haven't been able to get to it, She doesn't wait until Tuesday to say that. She says on Sunday, I said I'd have this done. It looks like I'm not going to be able to get this done. Can somebody jump in and help me, right? That asking for help when you know you're not making your commitments is an important part of being effective on a team so that the team stays on schedule. Because if other people were counting on that being done on Tuesday and it's not, now they can't proceed. It causes things to snowball out of control. You want to get there. And that idea that everyone is tracking commitments leads to the sort of fostering a shared leadership. Everyone can lead, even if there's officially a manager in a team, right? I believe a lot from leading from within, where you can have ideas and ask questions. The idea that someone's in charge and tells people what to do is generally not an effective team. It may be effective for the leader, but it may not be effective for the team. Sometimes team members want to be told what to do, but that doesn't mean it even has to come from the official manager or the team lead, right? So come up with this idea of shared leadership. Do this by asking questions. Can we get this done? Who's doing that, right? You can prompt things that make the leadership role happen even if you're not the leader. So even though I've been talking about virtual teams, an important part of virtual teams is to not forget about the sort of one-on-one interactions. So you might have lots of team meetings, but that doesn't mean you only have team meetings. If you really are going to have a conversation for 10 minutes between just two people, then that conversation may not be the most effective use of the entire team. And you might want to have some one-on-one meetings as well. So you want to balance that out. And it's even quite reasonable to sort of say, like, if the next 15 minutes is just going to be discussing this one topic, I'm going to, drop off now, right? So scheduling your meetings with an agenda that might leave the last bit of it for those who want to be engaged in something but not have to be is a useful way of balancing that as well. It's important that you also learn to speak up. This is going back to this sort of shared leadership, but also related to the one-on-ones. Right? If you feel things don't need to be discussed by the whole group, discuss that. Speak up. Anytime you see something going on, excuse me, have a question, whatever. Right? You should be asking questions and speaking up. This can be both live in person. It can also be through whatever your communications channel is. Speaking up is a way of making sure you understand what's going on. And it might be your misconception, or it might be that other people don't understand what's going on, or it might be everything was just vague and you're trying to resolve it, right? In general, it's not easy to speak up too often with good questions, right? If your team members, however, feel you're asking a bunch of irrelevant things, right, then they should speak up and let you know we need to keep our focus, right? If you keep taking tangential things and bringing up things that are far from where they're going, it can be useful for a while, but then it can also be distracting, so you got to find that balance. It's important when you're working with a team to listen, to really listen, and maybe even take notes about what's going on in the meeting. And I know some of you listen well. I don't know you all that well, but just from what I've seen in the discussions, some of the answers in the discussions show that you're not really thinking hard about what the person said. You have what you want to say, and you find a way to shoehorn it in, even though the person's comment really wasn't that related to that. So you want to take the time to think about what they're saying, listen, and really listen. Taking notes can be very useful when you're dealing, especially with an external client, not an issue for this class, but it's still important as you're listening to your clients. In this case, when you start doing customer stuff, which you'll be doing, it's really important that your team listen and maybe take notes there, because as we talked about a little bit in the design thinking, we'll talk about more in the next couple of things, right? When you're dealing with customer interviews, you're dealing with people you don't know, and your team as a whole might have different roles. One person taking notes, one person asking questions, thinking about what's going on. That can make that work very well. The different points of view that within your team are important, and it is very important for an effective virtual team to integrate different facts and points of view. If you have one dominant personality, you don't want to let their point of view dominate everything that's going on. So you want to be careful to make sure you're actively thinking about different facts and different points of view, right? The facts, there are many different facts, but if you have partial information, they might provide conflicting directions to go. So sometimes the answer will be, we don't have enough facts, we have to go get more facts, more customer interviews, more information, so we can figure out where we need to go. But you want to actively seek out that information, not just take the information that you like and go forward with that. In this class, right, you're not going to be getting your grade because of your answers. Most of your grade will come from your process of how to get to those answers, and that's about integrating different facts and points of view and making sure you're going out and do that. It's important for your virtual team that you experiment iteratively and intently. You want to know what we're trying to achieve, especially early in a team. The team dynamic may not be solid, so you might want to say, well, let's try this week. Let's try that next week. Alternating who's leading the video chats, or who's going to set the agenda. You can try different things until you figure out what works for your team. But be honest in assessing, this is what our experiment was about. That was our intent. Here's how we decided whether or not it's working, and that will be important. And then related to that is you want to reflect on your ideas and actions. One of the things I hope you get out of this class is a deep understanding of entrepreneurship, but I also think you will get, or if you reflect well, some improvements of your ability to work on a team, especially on a virtualized team, which we'll be doing for this entire class. You want to reflect on your ideas and actions, not just in terms of the course outcomes, but in terms of how you worked with other people in the team and how you might do better, and can I do better on that? In our today's virtualized society, chances are good you will be on many more virtual teams. Even if COVID is completely cured at the end of this summer, you'll probably be on a virtual team again throughout your career multiple times. So you want to use this as a chance to get some of those skills. It's not going to be required, but if you want to discuss any of these things, drop by during my office hours, which are Tuesdays 4 to 5 for this class. Stop by. We can chat about how you might do better or things you're struggling with, so we can talk about how you might be better as you reflect on what's going on. Okay, thank you.